you so much, Mohammed, and thank you for inviting me. And thank you both for Professor Saki and Cambridge Service Alliance. I think the previous presentations by Brian and Armin already made my day, actually. So we'll see what I can add to this. I think there are some big differences between our cases and also some similarities, actually. We heard the first one was a lot into retail and business to consumer. Second one in automotive, even though it was insurance, and both business to business and business to consumer. And in my case, I will talk, of course, it's our automotive and the machine industry, but it's also a pure business to business organization that I'm in. My speech today, or my presentation, will be a little bit about the Volvo Group, so you know who we are. Not trying to sell anything to you, but I think it's important to understand the context and where we come from. And I also wanted to share a little bit about the Innovation Lab, because I'm working at the Innovation Lab, and that is a very small entity within the Volvo Group, where we are focusing on creating new growth. So I'm responsible for a small team there, dealing with business innovation and foresight. So the competencies I have is, well, they are both in terms of entrepreneurs driving our innovation initiatives, CEOs of our new ventures, if you like. I have service designers in my team, and I also have people working with foresight, which I define as telling stories from the future. And I think it's a good mix to have. And I'll come back a little bit later to how we actually are working. But then the Volvo Group has a mission to drive prosperity in society through transport and infrastructure solutions. And you know that there's a growing demand for transportation, and at the same time we are concerned about emissions. So meeting this increased demand for transportation with sustainable and safe transport and mobility solutions are actually what we are doing. And when I thought about preparing this presentation, I also realized that we do a lot of AI and technology and digital in the group, but I wanted to focus on exactly what we are doing, namely to create new growth. So my examples will be from that area. And I mean, we touched upon autonomous drive in the previous presentation as well, and you can just imagine how much of AI is in place in those vehicles that we operate autonomously in mines and also on the road. We are, I would say, at least in economic terms, we are a manufacturer of capital goods. So what we do, we produce buses, trucks, construction machines, and also industrial and boat engines. The amount of services, I mean, we are on a servitization journey in this company and have been for quite some time. We have since long provided our customers with obvious services like providing spare parts, maintenance and repair contracts, financial services ranging from rental to leasing, basically, and installment credits, so that our customers actually can buy our products. And we have also connected different types of connected services. That was also a theme from the last presentation with the connectivity and enabled services that are quickly evolving, I would say. And then we have new services that we are dealing with in the Innovation Lab. And where we are trying to create new revenue streams, addressing maybe not our current customers always, but also the ecosystem around our current customers, meaning into logistics, into the transportation and movement of people. It's a pretty big company. We are a little bit more than 100,000 employees, and we are turning over about $50 billion a year in net sales. And we are present in 190 markets. So there are many white spots on this map. And that provides us with some good channels to the markets, of course, when we're working with innovation as well. So there's a foundation. Our aim for the future is to have these 300% are in focus. We want our products and services to be 100% safe. To be 100% safe to operate a vehicle or a machine. It should be 100% safe to also work at Volvo, and it should be safe for other people that are in your surrounding, in traffic situations, on the road, and in the mine. We want to be 100% fossil-free, and we have an ambition to be that in 2040. And that will happen with a combination of battery electric vehicles, but also hydrogen in certain applications where we don't see actually yet, at least, that batteries will be the obvious choice. And then we have 100% more productive as an ambition or a strategic goal. And that may sound pretty ambitious, but in fact, there are a lot of inefficiencies in transportation. Just the fact that trucks on average, at least long distance trucks, long haul trucks in Europe, have a fill rate of around 50%. It can give you an idea of what we could do if we could find things to transport on the empty stretches or the empty legs. So this is the background where I spend my days. As I said, I work at the Innovation Lab, and our mission is to create the next horizon of sustainable growth for the Volvo Group. So we're trying to find new revenues. We have existed about 5 years now. We have spun off one company, and one more is in the making. Other things that we have done have led to minority investments by Volvo and a number of partnerships as well. And the team looks like this. We're around 50 people. We're based in Gothenburg and in Silicon Valley, where we opened Volvo's first office about 5 years ago. Critical to a team like this is diversity, and I think you can spot it in the picture here. I think last time I counted, we were 14 nationalities, around 40% women, and of all ages, basically. So this is a key, I think, to be diverse in background, but to have a unity in your vision. We are working according to a very simple process where we have 3 steps, and we call them discover, incubate, and accelerate. And depending on whether you come from design thinking or maybe the lean startup world, you do have different semantics perhaps here, but the discovery phase is very much about finding customer desirability, or if you like, a problem worth solving. And to do this in a smart and structured way, we use our foresight team they look at value pools or focus areas where we can find revenue that actually can also become a business in the future. It can be a viable solution. So this is a problem solution fit phase where we don't invest much. Like most processes, it is there to reduce risk, actually reduce the risk that we are doing the wrong thing. I think here we have a genuinely difficult task, since we are in a classic product-oriented business, where we tend to want to have everything 100% certain before we launch anything. So when we design a new truck or a new machine, we want that to be 100% ready when we push the launch button and we reveal it in a, let's say, an exhibition in Hanover or wherever it may be. Whereas when we work with services, we know we need to start very early on the dialogue with our customers or intended customers or the whole ecosystem. And we know that it will not be right from the beginning. It will be right in the end. And this is a completely different situation. And I think many of you know this, and perhaps some of you are also in manufacturing industries, so you recognize the situation. The incubation phase, that is when we have detected that there is actually a problem worth solving. There is a need. Someone has an interest, and we have an estimated market potential. Then we start looking into, okay, what are the enablers for this service? How do we build the MVP? We start testing technical feasibility. We're also looking into the organizational capabilities we have, and I would say more often than not, this is one of the biggest hurdles at the delivering and maintaining, supporting a customer after the delivery or the deployment of the service is where we lack means and resources and capabilities. In the end of the incubation phase, we look more at viability. How can we capture some of the value that we're creating for this particular customer segment? And the acceleration phase is a lot about taking away barriers to growth. Growth in terms of the product, it needs to be scalable. Can we deliver to 10,000 at the same time instead of just in the incubation phase, we might have 10 customers trying something out. Do we need to have people on the ground? I mean, sometimes we need to train people. We change the way of working through our service offerings. And what does that mean if we want to deliver or deploy something both in Bulgaria at the same time as we're doing something in Brazil, just in terms of language, laws and regulations, level of education, etc. All in all, this is very much a hypothesis-driven development. When it comes to connectivity and digitalization, I think I have this old picture it's actually from Stockholm in the beginning of the 20th century. It's the telephone tower with cables to each subscriber, actually. I think in the last presentation by Armin, it was mentioned that we have had telematics have become popular over the last 10 years or so. I would say it's even longer than that. We launched our first connected truck in 1993. And since then, we have grown a lot. Maybe in terms of, if you compare to passenger cars, maybe it's not as big, but we still have more than 1.5 million connected customer assets today. And every day we receive terabytes of data from those vehicles. And here it's important to remember it's not our data, it's our customers' data, and that we need to consider and respect. Digitalization in this industry has a lot of potential in terms of how we can increase our service revenues, which is also an ambition from Volvo Group. So I think it was excellent to hear Armin talk about the car insurance and risk, because actually in many cases this is what we can do for our customers. We can take on risk, either if it's financial or operational. Financial risk we have taken for a long period of time in a classical setting through our company, Volvo Financial Services. Operational risk is a new thing. And here, of course, real-time monitoring and getting data of the operations is critical to prevent and predict breakdowns, for instance, so that the customer can keep his or her operation going 24/7, because that's the situation in many cases. If you take a mine, for instance, a breakdown of a vehicle or for that matter, a conveyor belt can cost tens of thousands of dollars per hour. Digitalization is also, of course, a way to interact more with systems and processes at the customer. So we can now support the customer in a completely different way than we could before. It was basically handing over a vehicle to the customer, and then the customer had to turn his asset into a service. And now we can actually enable that, support it, or even on their behalf execute some of their tasks. Digitalization also enables us to do remote command and control, and of course we also see here the opportunity to invite other players into our ecosystem. And that is what we are already doing, because we have this, if you like, a telematics platform. It's called Volvo Connect, where we have a marketplace where we also can have other. It's like an app store where you actually can put more services and have partners in business. When it comes to AI, we have used AI in our discovery phase, and I wanted to give you also an example later on here, a customer case where we haven't used AI, but rather advanced analytics to support our usual way of working. But we have recognized that we can speed up the development, or we can speed up our project to a large extent using AI for certain processes. And here I put an example just of creating a persona. It's not that we're using this persona, but it gives a sort of a frame, something to build on. And in our case, we are working with multiple stakeholders, and there are almost never just a pure customer and vendor relationship. There are multiple players, like if you have a road construction, you have the government, even you have the main contractors, you have subcontractors, you have hauling companies, you have authorities, etc. And we typically do this kind of stakeholder mapping, and also then creating certain personas for important roles, so that we know whom to interview, whom to focus on. And this is just an example, maybe a very simple one. We also use AI in terms of Midjourney or HeyGen, so to make movies and make our concepts come alive. Because when you're designing services, it's, as you know, it's very important to be able to visualize your ideas or your concepts. it's not very attractive to write or type something on a paper or a screen. You need to make it visible both to your customers, but also internally in your company. Now over to an example and a case study. And this is pretty new. I have not shown this externally to Volvo before, but I think this could be a good opportunity in this context. And it connects to Brian's presentation then, because it's in retail. This is with a customer that is operating their own fleet, but they have a grocery chain in Sweden. And we combine classic methods in service design and see data as another way to get input, another way to get maybe unbiased customer insights. You know, if you ask customers what they want, you know, they will want faster horses and all that. So I think data can be a super good complement and an additional value to the service development. So in this case, we actually took on the customer in the classic way to start with. We mapped out their organization and their external contacts. And then we interviewed stakeholders like the drivers, both long distance drivers and distribution drivers. We interviewed the fleet managers. A fleet manager is someone who is managing both the vehicles in a fleet, but also the drivers and the transport missions. So sort of combining those into a proper operation. We talked to their business developers or organizational developers who are actually trying to make this company a more better fit for the future. And we talked to those who do the tactical planning, which is an interesting task in a company like this, because they have many stores in Sweden, and of course, they need to have certain milk rounds where they deliver goods to the stores from central warehouses. And if they can do that in a more efficient way, then they might have a win. And from those interviews, we rounded it up with a number of concerns or issues. There were issues around going electric. This customer, as well as most customers, I would say, are thinking about going electric. They want to move away from diesel. It's a fear for them because suddenly you need to introduce charging. You know, filling up a truck with diesel takes a few minutes, and then you're done, and you have pretty good range. In this case, you introduce a new stop, basically downtime for the operation if you need to charge. And will I be able to cover my milk round without charging or with one charging? How can I move? And the answer is often that it's not a one-to-one replacement. You need to adjust your tactical planning. Maybe add or remove stores from that milk round, maybe introduce charging. There's also a bit of applying lean methodologies to operations like this, because it's almost like production in a factory. You're doing the same thing over and over. And when you do tactical planning, this customer in particular, they had 3 buckets they put their stores in, slow, medium, or fast. And what does that mean? It means the time spent standing still unloading goods and loading empty load carriers like roller cages, etc. So how can we help tactical planning? That was another question. And then operational issues. Why does anomalies happen? How can we prevent that? Can we better understand the operations and deviations for this particular customer? So this was sort of the how might we questions we put here. And then when we summarized this, we ended up in three research areas: stops or dwell times. How long does loading and unloading take? What does the routes look, or routes, maybe you say in the UK, what does the routes look like? Are there differences within the same routes depending on charging parameters? And what is the opportunity to go electric? And when we looked at customer data, which we could then retrieve from our vehicles, or rather the customer vehicle, so it's also customer data, and I'll get back to that at the end of the presentation. We see here some examples to make them better understand their actual operation. Of course, they are interviewing and talking to their drivers, and sometimes even measuring on by stopwatch or whatever. But here they could get massive data, and this was almost one full year. And I don't want to go into detail here. I just wanted to show you that we could see certain trends here. The stop or the dwell times varies over the day. So in the morning, early morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, 4 a.m., you have pretty short, on average, pretty short standstills at the store. In the afternoon, it takes a bit longer. And you can see here also that they have a lot of deliveries in the morning and also around 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There's also some color coding here. So each, in this particular case, the colors represent different drivers. So you can also see the spread between different people, which is something they also understood, that putting a new person into this operation will give a different result, basically. Then we have the stop duration based on season. And of course, now it's Black Friday this week. We know what will happen. Christmas is also very busy. So it's a slight variation over season. And you can also see here, based on the amount unloaded, how much goods is dropped off at each stop. Then you have different dwell times at the store or at the warehouse. We also did the analysis of routes and the variability. So this is pretty important to them to be able to plan better. You remember I told you about short, medium, long, or small, medium, large shops or stores. And here we see some examples. And to be able to apply lean methodologies and actually squeeze out the most of your operation, it's of interest to have as little variation as possible of each moment or each step in your process. And here you can see that in some cases they have something to take care of. They have extremely high variability of the stops, and sometimes it's a little bit better. And when they can get this kind of information, then they can do their tactical planning better. They can use less trucks, less drivers, and drive shorter distances. And it, in the end, means more money in your pocket, and also better delivery precision for the stores that will not run out of groceries. Another thing we looked at was the feasibility then of electromobility. And here are two diagrams, and I need to take you through these because it's not obvious perhaps. But here you see the number of missions, and then how much energy that is used for a complete mission. So this can mean a direct warehouse to store. It can be a full milk round. So how much energy do you use? And here we have used kilowatt hours, and of course we have translated then diesel and liquefied natural gas figures into kilowatt hours, and then compared with our first generation of electric trucks. And then we could see, okay, which has about a little bit less than 500 kilowatts usable charging. And we could then have 45% of the missions possible on a single charge without charging again, leaving about 55% of the operations without possibility to electrify them. But if we took all of these cases and put them in a different scale, where we instead check then again the dwell times, loading, unloading, and we look at how long the stops are. So they ranged from half an hour up to 4 hours. About 75% of those could not be transformed into electric vehicles, could suddenly be electric if they could charge for about 1 hour. And of course, this relieves the customer quite a lot from the anxiety of testing and starting to invest, and also becoming then greener in their operations. And now this is my last slide about the using data to design this sort of customer experience. This is not in service delivery. This is actually in the design. This is in the discovery phase of designing a service where we are using data. We are trying it out in different parts of the process as well, but I wanted to give you a very concrete example here. We do see some challenges, of course, and they are many. But I would like to start with the availability of data, because the data is not our data. The data is the customer's data. And we need the approval, the consent, as you know. In this particular case, depending actually on, and this is something for you to consider when you write your contracts with your customer, if you have a digital service, how you write the terms and conditions in that contract. In this case, we could not fit this analysis of data into the existing contract. So we actually needed consent from everyone that had operated those trucks. And that took quite a while, because the turnover from on drivers as well. It's not a job that you stick to for very many years. So all in all, this took us more than 6 months to get hold of the data. And in our process, we are typically working 12 weeks in the discovery phase. This means a huge delay. It was quite painful, to be honest. I think also the way we are trying to do this is within a big corporation is a challenge. It is a challenge also because of the fines that you potentially could face if you would take some shortcuts in handling data access, which we are not doing. We are doing it by the book 100%. But it means that a lot of functions within a large corporation is like legal, brand, etc. You need to wait for, and that means that service development actually goes slower than expected. And finally, that has very little to do with data, is the need for new channels to the market when you're doing things like this. A service that can help a customer to optimize their planning, for instance, is typically not something we today sell through our dealer network. In the automotive and machine industry, the typical sales channel is either fully owned dealerships, but more likely an independent dealer setup. And they are super good and super specialized on selling the physical products that we produce. They know all the differences between a Mercedes truck and a Volvo truck. When it comes to logistics, when it comes to tactical planning, when it comes to fleet management or transport management, this is not the case. So this is also a sales channel with profit and loss responsibility is of essence when you design new services like we are doing. And by that, I would like to end my presentation and